Hello, everyone. They talk a lot about the baby boomers. They talk about Generation X. They even talk a lot about the millennials. But what about Generation Z? Let's talk more about them on Agree or Disagree, the podcast. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Agree or Disagree, the podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. You can follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE. You can subscribe to all podcasts on iTunes and Spotify. You can also listen Wednesdays, 8 o'clock Pacific time on Powercast 979 Internet Radio Wednesdays. Go to powercast979.com. Add me as a friend on Facebook, Kevin Olenek. Like, Agree or Disagree the podcast on Facebook as well. And you can also soon will be able to go to the website, kevinolenek.com. According to an August 2018 report from Bloomberg, they will outnumber millennials within a year. Generation Z will comprise 32% of the global population of 7.7 billion in 2019, nudging ahead of millennials, who will account for 31.5% share based on Bloomberg analysis of United Nations data and using a 2000-2001 generational split. People born in 2001 will turn 18 or have turned 18 at some point in 2019, meaning many will enter university, be eligible to vote, and depending on their citizenship and where they live, smoke or drink alcohol without breaking the law. Generation Z has never known the non-digital world and have grown up amid events such as the war on terror and global recession. Who is Generation Z? What are they up to? And what can we learn from them? Our guest today will be able to shed some light on that. And rather for me to me doing an introduction, let's hear others do an introduction this time.
We're here to talk to you today about Morissa Schwartz.
Morissa Schwartz.
Morissa Schwartz.
Morissa Schwartz.
Morissa Schwartz, the voice of Generation Z.
The voice of Generation Z.
Morissa's a digital entrepreneur.
She started her publishing company when she was just a student. That all came after she read her first book when she was 12, had her first book published when she was 17, and then became a best-selling author by the age of 21.
She works as a digital entrepreneur from a young age, blending her writing, editing, and singing skills. Yes, she sings too.
You've seen her on MTV and Fox.
Here's Morissa.
Yes, you've read her books, you love Generation Publishing, you've watched Lifetime follow a year in her life. You have been inspired by Morissa's commitment to her bucket list, where she's done everything from breaking a Guinness World Record to appearing on not one, but two Times Square billboards. My tongue is tied. You've seen her sing on MTV. You've kept up with her articles all over. You've seen every film in the Marvel Universe. Morissa had nothing to do with that last part, but clearly if you have seen every film in the Marvel Universe, you have great taste. Morissa Schwartz joins us on Agree or Disagree, the podcast. How are you?
I am fantastic. How about you?
Great. We are actually, funny enough, when I was reading this, I was thinking we should have you on because we are actually reviewing all of the Marvel Universe movies up to Avengers Endgame.
That's amazing.
We just finished doing the Hulk and Iron Man 2, so we're kind of combining a little bit of them. So nice. we may have to have you on to give your perspective because I think it's.
I cannot wait for that. I am such a huge Marvel fan; it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I was saying this. We were talking about this in the other podcast. This is the most anticipated movie with so many theories. Probably ever. Like more than Star Wars, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Star Wars never, spoiler alert, killed off a bunch of their characters at the end of a movie. So
no, that's true. That is very true. We got a little bit of a taste of your story in your YouTube video, but from your perspective, what was it like growing up? Like, were you? You sounds like you have you obviously have done some incredible things throughout your life. But what was it like? How did you get kind of getting into writing and singing and all that?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of ways. I mean, one thing kind of feeds into another. But I grew up an only child to two parents who really encouraged me to do everything and anything from a very young age. They put me in dance classes when I was a year old. And basically, if I expressed any interest in anything, they were like, "Go for it, girl! You can do it!" Like, they would make me like posters, like, "You can do it! Go for it!" And just I was really encouraged to try everything possible. And every time I did something new, no matter how well I did at it, I had a giant three people, my great grandmother also, this amazing cheerleading squad, encouraging me. And I think anybody with that type of, I keep saying the word encouragement, but I'm going to say again, anybody with that type of encouragement is going to be really motivated to try new things and to accomplish more. So I got into singing actually when I was 11. I had Lyme disease, and it was a really terrible experience. I was a dancer. I couldn't dance, so I needed some other musical outlet, and I loved to compete, and I was doing a competition, and I needed some sort of talent to do, so I sang. And I really got into singing after that. And I was never as into dancing. It was more of a singing thing. So I got into singing through that. I always loved music. And while I was sick, I created a bucket list of all the things that I wanted to do, because while I was sick, the doctors didn't quite know what it was. At one point, they sent me to an oncologist, and I saw these girls who were my age and even younger, and they weren't going to make it to their 16th birthday. And I thought, oh my gosh, that might be me. So I made a list of all the goals I wanted to accomplish. And that's really how I've accomplished a lot of these things. So singing on national television, that was one of the goals. And, I was 12 when I wrote the list. So what does a 12-year-old really want? They want things like, I want to be on American Idol. I want to break a world record. I want to be on a magazine cover. So that was what my goal list was. And I accomplished a lot of those things because it was a dream that I had at such a young age that I really wanted to see through. And I had the encouragement to do that. Yeah,
it's funny just reading your story and thinking about it's so great to hear your perspective and you had the encouragement from your family to be creative because I'm not part of Generation Z, spoiler alert, the generations before have really not been encouraged to be creative. It was always about work. It was always about what that bank account was. You could do the creative stuff once you have established everything else in your life, your house, your family, your car, you have savings. And I think it's left a lot of people very sad in terms of not being able to express that creativity. So I think it's great that your parents and you deciding that the creativity part of your life was more important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because, my parents, well, at least my father was never really a straight and narrow type of person. He started his own floor covering store when he was in college and just kind of kept growing it and then brought my mom on board with him. And my mother was the type of person who was very on the straight and narrow. She's a very black and white type of person. And, she worked at a law firm and was the type that you do this, this, this. This is how life goes. And my father kind of encouraged her to think not just outside the box, to realize that there is no box. And then the two of them kind of instilled that onto me.
So you started you started writing when you were 12. Like, do you often get asked which you like better? Like, are you one that has a preference over singing or writing or dance or do you find that all of these skills kind of everything that you learn have a way to kind of develop your art in a different way?
I prefer singing for the simple reason that I get paid to write. And when you get paid to write or when you do writing, I'm also completing my dissertation because I'm completing my doctorate in literature. And getting paid to do it and then doing it for a grade adds a lot of extra pressure, and it makes it a lot less fun. Whereas singing, I've gotten to the point where I did the MTV thing. I enjoyed doing that, but I really just like to enjoy singing. I don't want to do it for the pressure of somebody judging or anything like that. So that's why I find solace in singing and playing my ukulele, where there's no judgment. I'm just doing it for fun. I'm doing it because I love music. There's no pressure. So from an enjoyment perspective, definitely the singing. But I think it's also because it's more of a rare thing. I don't have as much time to sing and to do music because I'm always so focused on the writing aspect with my doctorate and my company.
Okay. Yeah. And you've got a lot going on there. For sure. What I have to ask, what was it? You probably get this a lot, but I have to ask, what was it like being on MTV? What was it like having that opportunity or that chance to be on MTV? Tell us what your experience was like.
Yeah. Well, it was a dream for years, and I tried to get onto MTV for 4 years before I was actually cast on the show. I was cast on shows before that, but they always fell through. Like 4 times before that, they're like, yeah, you made it, and then they're like, oh, the show was canceled before it even started. So when I got cast on the show that I actually did, it took an entire year just to start filming. So I auditioned in January. And all this, I don't have an agent or anything. It was just me looking on MTV.com on their casting call. So January, I applied to be on the show. And then it took until November for them to do my final audition and send me the letter saying you're going to Hollywood with a golden ticket. So, it was almost a year before I was officially cast. And it wasn't until January of the following year that we actually started filming. So that process took a little bit of the magic out of it, because I went months just, going through normal life. Like, well, I guess it's just another one of those MTV shows that, I thought I was cast on, but that didn't happen. But then I got to go out to California, and that was amazing. That was my first time in California. And I saw the giant stage that looked like the American Idol stage, and, my eyes filled with tears. That was amazing. The host of the show was the guy who played Aaron Samuels in Mean Girls, which is one of my all-time favorite movies. So that was super awesome. Singing on the stage was amazing. The one thing, and I wrote an article about this for Entertainment Weekly, the one thing that wasn't amazing, and this is on me, was the nerves. I was just a big ball of nerves the whole time. I wish that I would have been able to relax a little bit more. It was like an emotional roller coaster. 1 minute, I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in California. This is so great. And the next one, I'm like, I'm so scared. I'm going to get eliminated. Like, it's extraordinarily nerve-wracking to do one of those shows. And then to be eliminated, because I was eliminated. I was in the top 5, but I was eliminated. And that was heartbreaking. And then you watch the show, and it's frustrating as well, because there are certain things that the audience doesn't see. Like, number one, I got to talk a lot with the host, and that was all cut out. And then another thing was they auto-tuned one of my competitors, and they didn't do, like, auto-tune on me. So it's just, there are things like that where it's like, well, that's not very fair. She sounded better because they put auto-tune. Like, just these silly things that you wouldn't think of.
I never really thought about I never really thought about how they would do that too, because I guess in a sense what they're trying to do is almost justify that decision. So I guess it makes sense that they want to make sure that the person that they picked sounds better than the person that they didn't.
Right.
But that's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. And you sign your life away. Like, I gave them permission to do everything. And my mother. My mother and I were cast on a show before. It was called Craft Wars a year before that, and they sent this contract and it said they can manipulate our image, our voice, all these other things, and my mother would not sign the contract. She sent it to our family attorney and said, Morissa, I'm sorry, I know it's your dream to be on one of these shows, but I can't sign this. I value my what I look like too much to do this show, and at the time I was so upset with her, but then I saw with MTV, the fact that they did do that they were able to manipulate my voice and to cut out a bunch of what I said and different things. Yeah, it's interesting. And nothing against MTV. It was an amazing experience that I'll cherish forever. And then I did another show with them. So I'm super grateful. But, what you see on television is very different from reality.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very true. I think that there's a couple of things that are coming to mind here to me. The first thing is I guess going back to the nerve part and kind of how, looking back, if someone was to say, if I was to say, you know what, Morissa, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try jumping on The Voice here. I'm just going to see what it's like. It's always been my dream to go on The Voice. How do you balance that nervous energy that is natural? It's natural to be nervous in front of something like that with feeling confident that you have the ability to do this.
Yeah.
And making it look smaller than how big it actually is.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer to that. It's funny because from being on stage at such a young age, I started competitively dancing at age 3. So I didn't really get nervous when I would go on the stage to dance or to sing. And people would always say before I did an event, like, are you nervous? And I go, nah, not really. But being on television was a different beast because I think it was something that I drummed up in my head so much that I've been dreaming of for so long that I was very, very nervous. And I really don't know how somebody would overcome something like that.
And the other part to that, the other thing that is coming to my mind is what you kind of said is, the conviction of saying no to something that feels like this is your dream. This is your dream. I can't do it because they're doing something that I am against. To be honest with you, I think that there would be a lot of people out there, and maybe I'm a little cynical, but I do see a lot of people out there that would say that doesn't matter because I have my once in a lifetime, pardon the pun, opportunity to be on TV. Looking back on that, did you feel like this was the best decision? Or do you feel?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and why? And why would, if someone else was to say that, why is that important to you to stand with your convictions, even in the face of a big opportunity?
Yeah, you can't let your nerves stop you from doing things. And if I did the show again or a show like it again, I probably would be just as nervous. But there's so much excitement that comes out of it as well, and also so much pride. That's on the resume forever. Like, hey, I was in the top 5 on the singing show on MTV. So you kind of do forget the nerves and the butterflies and all that. So yeah, I think in a heartbeat I would do it again, and I would implore anybody who has any inkling or any dreams to do a singing show or reality show like that to do it, and to do your best to not be nervous.
Yeah, but not only that, though, but just having the power to say no to something to a creative decision someone else was going to make that your mom said no to. I think that there's something, admirable to that, and I don't know if a lot of people would. I don't know if a lot of people that would be faced in the same decision would do that. I think they would be like, well, this is my opportunity to be on TV. Is it doctored? Sure, but I'm still on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's something. I imagine that plays very well into how you view entrepreneurship as well. Sort of that conviction of when to say yes and when to say no.
Yeah, well, I grew up with movies like Yes Man, where I don't know, at least my personality, people like me, we were encouraged to always say yes to opportunity. But then I got into grad school and I read a lot of books that said, start saying no more often. You can't just say yes to every opportunity. But I think it's kind of been in my brain that if you see an opportunity, you seize it. There's quite a bit of debate on that, like when to say yes, when to say no. But in my, I guess deep in my psyche, I have this thing: if there is an opportunity, you take it, you do it, you say yes. But somebody like my mother, I really respect that as well, because that takes a lot of humility to be able to say no to being on national television. That was a show hosted by Tori Spelling. It was crafts, which my mother is an amazing crafter. So that took a lot of, no ego, all this, that for her to be able to say no to that.
Yeah.
And also, it's self-confidence in its own way, that she had the self-confidence to know that, they could do something to manipulate the way that she looks, make her look better. She has the confidence to say, yeah, no, I control my own image. And I had a similar situation on MTV, actually. I always wear skirts and dresses, and I like to I read this thing that says you should always dress a little bit better just to help your own confidence, all this stuff. So I took that very literally from a young age. So I always like to wear skirts and dresses and dress up a little bit. I dress relatively conservatively as well. Like, I don't really like to wear low cut things or tight things. And when I got to MTV, they said, "Oh, what's with the skirt? And it's too high. Your skirt is too far down to your knees. The shirt is too high up. Do you mind if we put you in skinny jeans and have them ripped?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. I definitely don't want to wear jeans. I want to be dressy and wear my skirt." And I kind of had to fight them on that. And then they said to me, "Oh, when you're talking to the host, why don't you flirt with him a little bit?" I'm like, "No, I would like to be on here on my own merits. I really don't want to do that." So, I had to have those opportunities to kind of stand up against the producers, where that took a lot of confidence to be able to say that, because they could have said to me, "Well, then you're going home." They did that to another girl. She got there and they said, "Oh, thanks for coming out, but you look a little too old to be on the show." Like, they had replacements for people, and she got sent home before she even did the show, and her replacement stood in for her. So I knew I could have been sent home, but when it came to my own ego and fulfilling who I am versus changing for somebody, I decided, I wouldn't feel comfortable up there singing in skinny jeans with rips on them.
That's, yeah. And yeah, because you are you, and, there's this whole concept that's great. And seems like a really important thing for people to know, to stand for your conviction, whatever that is. And it may or may not work out, but I think in the moment, but it seems like in the long run, for what I'm have observed research wise, it's helped you go forward.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I have to ask you about being followed by Lifetime. What was that like?
It was really awesome. So what that was I created the world's longest chain of bracelets when I was 16 through 17 years old. And then a school of children broke the record, which has been a running joke, like, "Hey, your record got beaten by children." But then Lifetime was doing a show about people with goals who want to achieve them or go to the next level. So my goal was to reclaim my world record title. So they followed me for a year as I worked to reclaim my world record title. That was awesome. But when I signed up, I didn't quite realize how much work that was going to be, where every week, I had to do like a confessional video. If anybody who's seen a reality show knows what those are like, where, you sit and you just talk to the camera for however long. And for every minute of footage or 10 seconds of footage, you're recording like an hour. So it was quite time consuming. And then the show itself is only like 15 to 20 minutes. Yeah, it's crazy, but that was absolutely awesome. And I got to go to California twice for that. And I got to sit down with Kat Deely, and it was very fun.
Cool. How do you balance your skill, all of the stuff that you're doing, your singing, your writing, your and your entrepreneurship? How are you balancing all of that?
Yeah, it's becoming increasingly challenging, because my business is and definitely has taken center focus in my life. My main business, the Dr. Rissy's writing and marketing, and that's just because it's grown to a point more than I had anticipated it growing. I've grown to have 16 people that now are working at it. It's something that I think about constantly. It's kind of become my obsession a little bit. So that has become the top priority. But then, I try to keep weekends open during the day for working on my dissertation. Then Wednesdays, I have class. Singing, I typically do at night when I'm like trying to unwind, because I find that very relaxing. So, I'm a goal-oriented person, so I create my to-do list with, okay, I have to do this, and this day. So typically it has my business things on, but then I have my little blue and yellow items, which are fun things. So I've been putting fun things on the to-do list as well, just so that they actually get done.
Yeah, it is important for every entrepreneur to have a little bit of fun, and that sometimes is forgotten, especially when you've got so much like you going on, eh? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I asked this about a previous entrepreneur. I'd like to hear what your opinion is. Do you think entrepreneurship is something that you're born with? Like, you have a natural ability to be owning a business, running a business, things like that, managing people? Or in your mind, is it something that you feel that has to be developed?
It's a little bit of both. I think that you definitely, being an entrepreneur definitely requires a certain mindset. And I've known people, there's somebody currently who works for me who is incredible. And I'm constantly telling him, like, you should be running a business. You are so smart. You don't think like other people. And he just always says, oh, no, but I don't like to give orders. I like to be told what to do and to follow instructions. I'm very organized. This is what I do. And it drives me nuts because I know he has so much potential and I know he could be an amazing entrepreneur. But I think that he's one of the results of not having the correct, encouragement from a young age. Maybe, he's kind of like my mom where everything is black and white. But just like my mom, I think that he would be able to develop into an incredible entrepreneur if he had the right guidance, the way that my father kind of guided my mom into the entrepreneur world. I think that if he had somebody say, okay, this is how we're going to do it, this is how you're going to get over that fear of leading other people, they could do it. Other people, it's much easier for. Like for me, because I grew up in my parents' mom and pop carpet shop, I just saw my parents constantly every day working at their business. So it came a little bit more naturally to me. But I still had to and have to work at it and learn because there are so many things I don't know. So everybody has to work at it. It's just a matter of how hard you have to work at it. It's almost like people are good at math. Some people are born and they just know how to do the things. Other people have to work a little bit harder. And they can catch up if they work harder than the people who just say, oh, I'm good at math. I don't need to study it anymore.
Do you consider yourself a hard worker or a smart worker?
I always say work smart, even though that's bad grammar. I'm both, though. I used to just be a smart worker, but to grow and scale my business, I've had to become a hard worker as well and put in the 11-hour days simply because there are so many phone calls and things with clients that I need to do. So as much as I even wrote a book about this, we gotta work smart, blah, blah, blah. I'm a little bit of not following my own advice because the way that my business is operating, clients like to talk to me. They know about the team and everything, but they say, but Morissa, can we consult with you about this? And I'm not going to turn it down. I enjoy it too much. So I consider it hardworking, but I don't know if you can consider it hardworking if you're enjoying it so much. But as far as efficiency and systems and making sure that everything is organized and taking as little time as possible, I'm a smart worker, and there I encourage my team to be smart working. But as far as hard working, I try not to, but it's hard to avoid.
It's fair. It's probably it's a balance when you're doing both. That you're working, and maybe you don't always know what is which, and you never can figure that out. Now, your team. Is your team all in the Generation Z category, or?
No, actually, a lot of them are. A lot of them are my age. A couple are a little bit younger. But we just brought on somebody who's in his 30s or 40s even. I have another person who's in her 30s, and then I have we just brought somebody on this past week who is, I think, about 50. He's like my dad's age.
Okay. So what inspired you to be the voice of Generation Z?
I actually didn't ask for that title. It was given by Community Magazine after I started my book publishing company called Gen Z Publishing and my podcast called the Gen Z Podcast. They were very kind and called me that in an article, and then it got picked up by Monmouth Magazine, and there was one other magazine that said it because they started it.
Okay.
Yeah, that was why.
What kind of from their perspective, what is it about what you're saying about Gen Z that is been kind of spoken out? Maybe let me ask it better this way. Sorry, sometimes I flub up there, but what are some of the misconceptions, or what are we needing to learn about Generation Z? What are kind of the misconceptions that are already developing about Generation Z?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people hear the negatives, like about cyberbullying and all those kinds of awful news stories, and they don't realize just how kind and accepting Generation Z is. Generation Z is definitely the most accepting and diverse population that America has ever known. And we celebrate our differences, and that's part of what my dissertation is on. It's about this idea of, we've gone away from community a little bit. Like, everything used to be about your neighbors or seeing your neighbors in church back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and it's kind of gone away from there. But instead, we now have people celebrating their individuality and finding others who are similar to their style. And we're able to be even more diverse as a result. And I guess an example of that would be, you didn't have so many different music genres or so many different movies and styles and interests. And now somebody can be a girl and like Marvel, or, they can see a superhero that looks like them, or a million other, they can enjoy rock music that has rap in it. There are so many different examples of that.
Is it because it is a generation that grew up with the internet? Is there this perception that it's only an online obsession, or does Generation Z have is that a sort of a misconception? And do they have a offline presence that we need to be more aware of? Are they more aware of the non-internet world than we give them credit for?
I generally, I've known people both ways. It really depends on the person. I know somebody, she's my best friend. We call each other grandmas because the two of us do like to take a little bit of time away from our phones, and that's quite rare. So, I don't know how far off that is, though. People really do live on their phones. And I was just talking about AR and VR, the fact that pretty soon we are going to have, just regular glasses or contact lenses that are going to be able to alter the real world and show us facts and things right on our eyes. Pretty soon there really won't be a way to escape the digital world. So I don't know if that's so far off, though. I think most people, again, generalizing, most people in this generation are constantly connected.
I would propose that a lot of the generations are more connected than we want to admit. I mean, I have the people I'm following on my social media. There's a bunch in my age group, bunch younger, and even a bit of older that are just, they spend a lot of time on social media because it's been the way of the world that we're just connected to. So I don't know if that's a fair perception about Generation Z only being part of the internet, because I think that as a culture, we're all there, I think. Yeah. But so I don't know if that's necessarily a fair thing. What do you see, though, in terms of, because you do some consulting around SEO and social media, what are you sort of seeing in terms of the trends right now, in terms of conversations, in terms of what people are thinking about, what are companies thinking about, in terms of how Gen Z is going to look at social media in the future?
Yeah. I mean, it is funny to see that shift from everybody on Facebook to now Facebook is for moms and grandmas, according to a lot of college students. And yeah, it's interesting. It's difficult to understand where the trends are going. A lot of people in Gen Z do take their privacy very seriously, which is kind of funny because they grew up without much privacy. So I'm also curious to know where it's going to go. And I think it either go one of two ways. Either everybody's going to pretty much give in and say, privacy's overrated. Let's just all be online all the time and have all our information out there. Or we're going to have like kind of blockchain where everything is so encrypted that it's more private and closed off than ever.
Yeah, that's it is interesting. Are you so that the perception of Facebook is kind of like that's the older generation of social media nowadays for Gen Z, or?
Oh, it totally is. Yeah, most people that I know are on Instagram. That's like the number one. That's the top one.
Yeah. Okay. What in your opinion? What's the difference between the Gen Z and the millennial generation?
Well, millennials grew up without the internet, like for their formative years, whereas Gen Z grew up with internet, like they really don't know life without the internet, and they grew up with a lot of their life having cell phones, smartphones connected to them, so they know what it's like to just say, pull out their phone and answer a question, whereas millennials know what it's like to have to actually locate a physical dictionary or an encyclopedia to answer a question. So I think that the wealth of knowledge that Gen Z just takes for granted is probably the biggest difference. And the fact that they have anybody, that they can contact anybody at any moment at the tip of the finger, is a huge difference.
That's one true thing. And the millennials are getting this whole. It's going to be interesting in a few years, I think, what we end up conversing about Generation Z in terms of like they say about millennials and what they say about Gen Z. All of this I think will be fascinating. I get in the future. But one of the things that I am curious about with a lot of younger generations, including millennials, including Gen Z, is their approach to work. Not that you don't work, but it sounds to me, just from your own personal perspective, that this idea of the 9-to-5 workday for you personally doesn't resonate with you. Would that be fair to say?
No, that's a nightmare.
Yeah. Do you see that from Generation Y, from your colleagues, coworkers, friends? Is that something that is becoming less of an ideal and more of the idea of developing your own business, developing your own opportunity, taking advantage of the dreams that you have in front of you? Is that something that Generation Y will be more encouraged to do?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even people who have traditional jobs that I know in Generation Y, a lot of them also work remotely with it. So, they're not just working, maybe they're working 9 to 5, 3 days a week, but then 2 days a week, they're working from home. And it just makes sense to a lot of people because, what's the difference if you're working at your computer in an office or at home? So yeah, a lot of that's a huge perk. And it also allows for companies to be able to source talent from not just, who lives in my town to who's great in the country. So that's why it's good for companies as well to not just have 9-to-5s, but it's, of course, enticing to young people because they can travel if they want to. They can be with their puppies. Puppies and cats, pets have really grown to be more like babies to young people, more than any other generation. So they're able to spend their days with them, and yeah.
Yeah, and they're the puppy, the animal is definitely becoming a part of the work vernacular. Like when I pay my yearly casting thing here in Vancouver, I go down to the office and I can pay online, but I'd rather just go down there because I just love dogs and I want to see all 800 of them that they have wandering around there. It's just, I guess, the approach to having like this, what the term professional means is different. Not that it's not professional, but it's not necessarily as like, it's more to me about the mental health of the employee person than it was from previous when I was in the workforce, where it was like, we have to work, and if we don't get paid, we don't pay you to do anything other than what exactly you're required to work. Where I think the Gen Y job approach is all of these other little perks, all of these other things that are important to mental health help you be a better and more productive worker. Is that a fair comment?
I definitely think so. Yeah, that was why even like Google, they had, the slides and all those games and stuff. It wasn't because Google was like, yeah, we really like the people working here. It's because they thought if we let people play, they'll be more productive. That was the thought process there. So definitely.
Yeah.
And it's the same with working from home.
Yeah. Are you more in the office more? Or are you at home more? Or how does that? Do you have a balance there?
Well, I have a home office, so nice. I'm currently sitting in my office in my home. But some days I like to work outside. Some days I like to work in my living room. Some days I work from the library. It really just depends on the day. But yeah, I don't see a need for an office. My team and I telecommunicate via Skype and Slack and Trello, and we keep organized that way. So And most of my team, by the way, I have one local person who I've actually met, two local people I've met in person. The other folks I have never met in my life. I've just talked to them over Skype. And they're all around the world. They're Texas, Florida, California, Virginia, all over, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. I've never met them in person, but it works because they are so skilled in what they do.
That's so fascinating too, because I think it's so great that we're not like, I know in some places we have to have this local thing, and when I was at a recent radio job, we talked about we need everything local. But I think that this term local it means so much more to other people. Like, it's almost turned into the word global, because as you mentioned, you have friends from all over the States, right? And I have friends from all over Canada, and like my friends on Twitter that I have never met before, but I can communicate with them online, and I still think that they're valuable friends, even though I haven't seen them or I'm not in person with them.
Right.
I think there's powerful to that, and you seeing the talent in someone, even though you haven't met them, I think that's great to me. That's those opportunities are out there. Yeah,
absolutely.
So you mentioned that your passion was the Dr. Rizzi's writing. So let's talk a little bit about that. And in your first paragraph, you talked a little bit about getting noticed professionally in real life. It sounds like you have developed a natural skill for that, or you have a skill for that. What are some of the things that people do? What are the common mistakes that people do in trying to get noticed professionally that you work with people with? What are some of the common mistakes that people make that you need to fix?
Yeah, number one is they spam people. So I go onto a lot of social media profiles, and they put a Facebook post up and they have like 10 hashtags. I'm like, okay, this is not gonna work. Or I'll go onto Twitter and they'll have like 10. This just happened. I talked with a client and he had like 10 hashtags on Twitter. I'm like, okay, that's not. And he tagged Rihanna and like 3 other random people. I'm like, you can't just tag random people. Like, that's going to annoy them. So a lot of teaching people how to get away from those tactics that just annoy people and how to do tactics that actually work. Number 2, with when it comes to writing, showing people to write what they know. I have a lot of authors that will come to me and they're writing about topics that they just don't have the experience in, or they're just trying to write something that they think somebody else is going to like, and they don't have a clear audience in mind. So a lot of that comes from rewriting and working on something that actually does resonate with them.
Yeah, talk a little bit. The audience part is interesting. Like, how do you see? Are you one that, like, in your mind, suggests to people that you need to determine exactly what your audience looks like? Like, what does the person look like? What do they eat in the morning? What do they dress? Where do they go during the day? Or do you have a broader approach in terms of like what an audience could be? What are your thoughts on that concept?
Yeah, I am more of a fan of having multiple audiences. For example, I worked with a client who said to me, my audience, I know exactly my audience is. They are middle-aged businessmen, and this is all I want to cater my services to. So I worked with him for a few months, and we're trying to cater to these middle-aged businessmen. He's a middle-aged businessman in rural areas. So we're doing that, and it was going fine, but I'm like, we're missing out on some people. I said, Marcio, can we do another ad set geared towards millennials? I said, I think that millennials in urban areas, both male and female, not just businessmen, but male and female, entrepreneurs, freelancers, I think that that's another audience for you. It's like, oh, you're crazy. No way. I'm all about middle-aged businessmen. I'm like, just let me try an ad set with this. And it worked. And he got 3 times more the conversions as the month before because we tested out this other audience. So I think if you come up with a few different audience things and don't just focus, like some people say, oh, find your niche. Like even for me with my company, they'll say, oh, well, who is your niche? Who does your company do the writing and marketing for? Or like, do you guys just work with insurance agencies or do you just work with podiatrists? Like I know a company that literally only does marketing for podiatrists, and I'm not a fan of that because then your clients are competing against one another. And I would never want to do that. Like, I have a credit card company that we work with. I'm not going to work with another credit card company because then I would be deploying the same tactics for both of them. So I like to diversify. So if we're looking at audience, I like to find multiple audiences, think like that audience, and see what works best.
Yeah. That's good. It's true. Yeah. Because I'm kind of like you in terms of because I've always been asked what my audience is, and I feel I like a broader perspective on that, because I don't like, it's hard to think about just one person when I record a podcast or something. It's hard for me to just think of one person. I usually try to think of a number of different people and how they would look at that. And then in terms of ghostwriting services that you offer in editing and feedback, like for the authors out there, what are some of the things that you are commonly dealing with in terms of the challenges that you're hearing from authors dealing with?
Yeah, writer's block is probably the one that I hear the most, and I have a professor who is like the nicest person in the world, and somebody complained to him about writer's block, and he said, "Who do you think you are?" And everybody was like, "Whoa, excuse me?" And he was like, "No, who do you think you are? That you think that everything that you write is going to be solid gold every time?" And they were kind of like, whoa. And he explained that, when you get writer's block, it is because of ego, because you think, oh, I can't write something perfectly, so I'm just not going to write it all. He says, no, just let the pen start flowing. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. Get the pen flowing, get your mind working in that writing way, and get over the writer's block. So I try to be a little bit, I try not to be as blunt as him, even though he truly is like the nicest guy. But it was just funny. It was very out of character for him to say all that.
Yeah, it's that's interesting. Yeah, I can kind of see where he's coming from, though. I guess in terms of ego part, I can see that for sure. Because we all want what we do or what we sing to be awesome or to feel awesome about it, but sometimes you just need to do it. And when you do stuff, it becomes practice in a lot of ways, and you just get it out, and then it comes out better. And then I want to just read this. I believe that talented authors and entrepreneurs need a helping hand from someone that they trust to make their dreams come true. So don't sit in front of your website or web document in abject despair, wondering how to get readers and customers you need. And then you go on to say hiring. Because you're certainly in an industry that is competitive, but it sounds like you want to be collaborative. How do you see collaboration? And even, is this something that maybe Generation Z has picked up on as well a bit? Is this idea of collaboration to allow others to be successful with you as opposed to competing? Like, how do you see the difference in that?
Yeah, I don't see, I grew up very competitive. I mean, I broke a world record for kind of, that's competitive. So I grew up pretty competitive, but I feel like in the professional setting, it doesn't serve you very well to be competitive, or at least in this professional setting. Maybe if two people are, competing over a job title or something, okay, then you need to be competitive. But when you have a business or are working online or a freelancer, the only thing that person that you should really be competing against is yourself. So my version of competition is, okay, I want us to sign 75 clients this month. That's not competing against anybody. That's saying to my team, hey guys, let's all work together to close 75 clients this month so that we can all work on them. And I think that that's the best type of competition. It's healthier than if I said, man, that marketing company over there, they have 80 clients. We need to steal their clients. That doesn't help anybody. So.
Yeah. How does, talk about the power and the importance of business ethics and why they are important, and sort of your value around that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you need your clients to trust you, and you need to respect yourself. I've known people who have done some pretty sleazy things, and I just kind of always think, how do they respect themselves? I've had clients that, I had to implement different deposit policies and things because of clients who just didn't pay. They said, oh, I don't have the money. Sorry, I can't pay you. And this is a common issue amongst small businesses and freelancers, that just some clients decide they're not going to pay, and there's very little you can do to collect that money. So different things like that, just kind of, I think, from being burned before like that and seeing how it feels to be on that end. I personally and my team tries to be very ethical and very open. I've seen the things that bother me about my team. If somebody just stops responding to my messages or, has a typo in a post or something, I see how much that irks me. So I say, okay, we can't do that to a client. We need to be responsive. We need to check over our work. So by having the experiences that have happened to me and to my team, we can do a better job for our clients.
Cool. Is there anything else that you want to touch on that we haven't talked about yet?
Not really.
Okay. So kind of tell us what you have going on. There's a lot you can there. So kind of tell us what you've got going on in the future and maybe a couple things from your bucket list that you're working on as well.
Yeah. So this is for both. One of the things on my bucket list is I want to be Dr. Rissi, and that's what my business is called. It's always been a dream to be a doctor, and originally I thought I was going to be a medical doctor. I went to a biomedical sciences academy, but my passion is not in the sciences, so I'm completing my doctorate in literature, working on my dissertation, so that will be something to be checked off the bucket list. I'm, of course, working on my business, constantly growing it, adding not only new clients, but new team members to serve those clients, people in all different specialties. When I started my company, we were just a writing company, but we've grown to include social media, SEO, ads, even writing ebooks, white papers, all of that. So that's another, huge passion. And of course, I still sing locally and online just for fun at events and things. And then in the past year and a half, we adopted 2 puppies, 2 Yorkies. So they are my little prides and joys. And I love working with them and spending my days with them. So, yeah. And the other things I have left on my bucket list, the doctor one was a big one. I still have a few things left, like visit Australia. That's actually relatively easy to achieve, except with the difficult work schedule. Maybe not. But yeah, I'm about 75% of my way there with the bucket list. I probably should add some more items to it.
Do you do you have clients outside of the States, or are you just focused in the States right now?
No, I have a few outside. Actually, I have a pretty large influx from India where they have technical companies and they need American writers to write their ebooks and white papers for an American audience. So I think I have like 4 clients like that are in India in these technical fields. Cool.
Well, any in Canada?
Yeah, I do. And the dollar thing always comes into play because, their rate, a Canadian rate, it's like higher than ours. So, we're always trying to figure that out. But yeah, I do have a few in Canada.
Cool.
I also have a few in Australia, one in the UK.
Cool. And are you one of those that you have to have things done by a certain age? Like, okay, this needs to be done by the age of 30, age of 40, age of 50, kind of like that? Or are you just like, this is my bucket list, and when I get it done, I get it done? Yeah,
I'm more of the laissez-faire attitude. I used to say I want to be a millionaire by age 30, but I don't, it's needless pressure. Mm-hmm. So I don't put an age on these things, but I'm also a precrastinator, which is the opposite of a procrastinator, meaning I do things early. So, pretty much the goal is not, let me get this done by the time I'm 30. It's more, let me get this done as soon as possible. That's why I completed so many of the things at such a young age, I think, because I didn't put an age limit on it, because I'm like, okay, this all needs to get done now, like immediately.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate your time today. I think you gave us a really good perspective on Generation Z about how to live a life well lived. I think a very interesting story. So I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on today.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, and we'll be having a bunch of other stuff. We do have our Marvel reviews, as mentioned. We will have our hockey podcast on Saturday. We will be launching this weekend, KevinOlenek.com. So check all that out. We will end with a song from Morissa, so enjoy that, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.
If I was yours, I know we're not